Let's just do one script that makes a lot of people a lot of money in 2020. And that is...
Hey everybody, welcome to the Tom Ferry Show. You may notice a little different setting. This piece of content is going to be for brand new agents. It's going to be for veteran agents that want to improve on 4 primary KPIs in working with buyers. So stop for a second. If you're working with buyers and you want better conversion, better experience, more sales, you're going to love today's show and my guest. So here's what we're going to do. At the summit last August, I talked about 5 superpowers of the agent of the future specifically. So if you were with me, you remember this point because we weaved it throughout the entire 4 days together. Those 5 superpowers, in my opinion, are number 1, modern marketing, which means marketing to people in a relevant way in the medium that matters most to them, which then creates business development. That's the same piece, modern marketing and business development. The simplest way to describe it is to attract your tribe and ultimately convert to make the money that you want. That's the number 1 superpower. Number 2 is brand building. And really what it's about is scaling trust. Scaling trust. All I want for you is to be on the consideration set of more people that you don't know and absolutely on the consideration set for a referral or a direct transaction of the people that you know. So, you've been watching the Tom Ferry Show. You've been listening to all my content. I've been talking about scaling trust over and over again. So we know that one. Number 3 is transferring your skills to your team. So yes, I'm making a bold statement that in the future, it's going to be very hard to compete as a solo individual agent. Now, if you're sitting listening to this now and you're like, wait a minute, I'm solo. No, you're not. You have a mortgage person, you have a title person, you have a manager. Everybody in real estate has a team. I'm arguing though, if you want to improve the experience for the consumer and be able to go on vacation, you got to have a team, right? And your ability to transfer your wisdom, transfer your skills, this is how I do it, is a massive superpower going forward. Number 4 is negotiation mastery, which we can talk about for days. But the reason I have Patrick Ferry here today is I want to talk about trusted advisor consultations versus sales pitches. Trusted advisor consultations versus sales pitches. So today, even though I've already given you the clue on who he is and you've seen him, if you're watching the video versus listening to the podcast, I want to introduce you to a newer agent, 4 years in the business in San Diego. Some would argue, Patrick, you are the most trained salesperson in all of real estate, even though you're only 4 years in the business, right? Just because of coaching and our family name and everything else. So super proud of you. Patrick, you're crushing it today on 4 KPIs with buyers. And I know this is a very long introduction, so just bear with me. 4 KPIs. So if you're listening right now or you're watching, especially if you're in a training right now in your office, the 4 KPIs that he is working on, please write this down. Number 1 is increasing conversations to appointments with buyers. Conversations to appointments with buyers. I want to talk to fewer people and get more appointments. Number 2, increasing the number of consultations done at the office, right? Versus at the house or Starbucks or, over the phone. Increasing number of consultations at the office. Number 3, reducing the number of showings to an offer. Love that. And number 4, increasing offers written to offers accepted. That percentage, that ratio. So Patrick.
Yes.
First of all, welcome to the show. That was a really long introduction.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Good to see you, my brother. So, look, we could go for days on. We should do a separate podcast training sometime, just the two of us, just talking about life and fun.
Love it.
Today, we want to help people work on the other half of every transaction. I think one of the great sort of missing elements of sales training, consultative selling, which is working with buyers today. So let's start with, in your mind, what were the 4 things you did in the beginning that didn't work that helped shape what you're doing today? Start there.
Yeah, I'll start there. And then just for a little bit of context, though, I think coming into being a coach with Tom Ferry, the obsession of my entire career and of all of the tribe was always on listing conversion.
Yes.
And so, when I started as a brand new agent, I was highly trained, and I had every skill set to convert anyone who's thinking of selling into a contract and into a close. And so I was clueless with what to do with buyers. And so
I appreciate that honesty.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know what to do, right? And in San Diego, I had to do open houses, and I was terrible. And so what I noticed now, 2-3 years later, was, wow, okay, here's the things that I was doing that totally wasn't working. So the first thing that I was doing was I was obsessing over getting people to sign in. Okay, how am I going to get you to sign in? Where do I put the thing?
How am I going to close you to get you to,
Do I put it over here? Do I walk away? Do I put the brochure here? What do I say?
Do the seller says you have to sign in?
The lie of the seller has to sign in, but it's a vacant house. This is weird. So there's all kinds of funny sign-in stuff that goes on, and it's a distraction. The second thing is I was trying to qualify the buyer the moment I met them. And we're constantly like, qualify them. And the one phrase that I think every real estate agent should eliminate out of their head is, are you pre-qualified? That was like the stupidest question I've ever heard, but I was doing it. Are you guys pre-qualified?
Why did that not work?
Well, because it's it's just insulting. You need a little relationship before you start talking to people about finance. A little bit more.
That's a great distinction. So it's not that the question's a bad question. It's just like, I would jokingly say, please just, accept this for what it is, my friends. You meet somebody for the first time, and if you say, well, we should go to bed together, right? Like that, you might want to build a little more rapport, have a dinner, ask a few more questions.
Exactly.
I'm probably never going to say that on the Tom Ferry Show again, but you all know what I mean.
Oh, right? No, I love it.
So keep going.
And
what else?
And that's so true. So, and then the third thing that I saw was I was obsessed over my automated follow-up program. What CRM am I going to put them in? Is it going to be a text message, an email, a video? And should I do 3 a day, 10 a day? And it was like, the 10 days of pain and suffering. And it was like, wait a minute, this is just so weird, right? And none of that kind of automated was working.
What do you mean weird?
Weird because it was like, I barely meet you and I'm trying to qualify, trying to get you, and then I'm putting you into an email sequence or some text message sequence. And for some reason, those were never working. Right. And I was like, okay, what is the deal here? Right. It was driving me crazy. And then I think the fourth mistake was I was actually treating everybody as if they were in the transactional phase.
This is big.
Not the research phase. So which I was basically saying, hey, can I send you some off-market properties? Just like these types of offers. And people were like, no, I don't really care for that. And I was like, oh, darn it. What's the deal? So I think every agent can relate to those mistakes because we're all kind of obsessing over those four things versus.
Now, but let me ask you, are you saying that those things are wrong?
No, not at all.
It sounds like it's context specific, though, especially because I think that last point let's unpack the last point.
Sure.
Are they in the research phase or the transactional phase?
Yes. So
tell us more about it, and what's the question you asked to discover? Help us understand that.
So I figured out one question that changed the game for me, and it was, how familiar are you with this community, this neighborhood? And what I discovered was people were like, hey, I'm just here checking it out for the first time. That immediately told me that they're just researching communities and neighborhoods. And then if someone said, oh, well, I'm very familiar with this. Well, A, that might clue me into, are they a neighbor? And then B, the people that are really familiar, then the next question naturally was, well, how many properties have you seen in this community? And when they're like, oh, I've seen them all. And they're game face on. We already know that's a transactional buyer. They are looking for the right house right now. Okay. So what I noticed is when I was offering kind of services and trying to get them for me as a buyer, the people that were in the research phase, they wanted something different. And the people in the transaction phase really wanted something very specific. And so when I changed the game, boom, I started getting way more showings. I started getting way more consultations because I was addressing where the consumer was at in the journey.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. I love it. All right. So I know everyone listening, I know you're getting this. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to break down the 4 KPIs that he is paying attention to, he and his coach, and then we're going to talk about strategy, tactics, and scripts where appropriate. So if you're taking notes, which I strongly recommend, we're going to go through each one of these, and you might want to start by asking yourself first, where is the breakdown in my conversion, you with me, on these of these four, right? So the first one is increasing conversation, the first one is increasing conversion to conversations to ultimately appointments, right? The second one is increasing the number of in-office buyer consultations. The third one is how do you reduce the number of showings to an offer written? And the fourth one is how do you get more offers accepted?
Yes.
So let's talk about the first one, Patrick, increasing conversion on conversations to appointments. Talk to less people, get more appointments. What's the strategy?
So the strategy is what I noticed is what the consumer was attracted to. What do the buyers want from us as real estate agents when they're meeting us for the first time, either at an open house or an internet lead? It doesn't matter. And so I started to really think that through, and eventually I came to three conclusions. Conclusion number one is, and you actually are the one that kept telling me about this over and over again and telling all of the Tom Ferry world, you're saying the consumer, the buyer is looking for the hyper-local expert. So it took me a while to figure out what does that mean and how do I deliver that? And so when I was doing an open house in my farm, in my neighborhood, the buyer would walk in and I'd say, hey, how familiar are you with, at that time I was living in the Costa Valley, Carlsbad, and they would say, well, not really very familiar with this neighborhood at all. And so then I would just start sharing with them. Oh, well, this is what's going on with the HOA. And by the way, I was taking my kid through the trails over here. It's so much fun. And then it's all walkability over here. And then, you know, the different models in this community are, and the price points are. All of a sudden, I started seeing people were leaning into me and started to ask me a lot more questions. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. So I started experimenting with, okay, well, what do I share with the person that walks in the door that I know if they are a research phase buyer or even a transactional phase buyer that they don't know about this community? And that I could share with them that will then cause them to be like, oh, he knows stuff that I don't know. Because they've been online and doing all the research, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So the second thing that I noticed was if I can demonstrate resourcefulness as a real estate agent. Now, what does that mean? Well, just think fix or flip, right? So everybody loves these Bravo flip shows. And what do they love? They love to see people transforming homes and they love to see the numbers break down. So as a real estate agent, because now that we have, you know, we fixed and flipped our last home and then we just bought a new house and completely remodeled it. Now, when someone comes through the door and they're looking at this property, I can say, hey, to replace those windows, here's how much it would cost. Don't worry about the green carpet in the hallway. I got a guy who can just remove that, no problem, that's no big deal. What I started noticing was when I could provide solutions to what I knew the buyers were going to be a little frowning, they're like, oh, well, there's chips over there and that, and there's this and there's that, and there's this and there's that. And they over exaggerate how much it's going to cost to fix all that stuff. When I can kind of demonstrate subtly, oh, no big deal, we get that done. Psst, before you even move in, this, that, and the other, I got a guy,
here's the price, here's the cost, this is what it's going to look like.
They were like,
the bones of the house are already X, let's turn it into your dream home.
Yeah, this is a killer floor plan. This is a great location. We can transform this stuff for 15 grand before you move in, no problem. All of a sudden, they were like, whoa, it's much better to be walking through a house with that guy than it is. And the funniest thing I had was, I had this couple say to me, hey, I learned more in 5 minutes talking to you than I did all day looking at properties with this other agent. And that's why I was like, oh, interesting.
Consultative selling, being the local expert and having a unique factor that the average agent doesn't have. And a lot of agents are watching this saying, well, I know all that stuff and I do that stuff. And I guess I would say to you, are you acknowledging the impact that that's having? Because that's what you're seeing here. What was number 3?
Number 3 was, what was number 3, by the way?
Hyper-local expert. Resourcefulness versus not.
Oh, yeah. The last one is that there's some competitive advantage working with you than anyone else.
Yes.
So again, this is what buyers are attracted to. So we got to think that one through, right? So do you offer something? You know, like I was talking to the great agent Randy Orr, and we were just talking about, hey, what could we kind of offer to the buyer that there was a little incentive to work with us versus anyone else.
Yes.
Now, I also figured out though, is if you're like, hey, I know this listing agent. I've already had a great conversation with them, right? And they're like, oh, you know them. And
We have a better working relationship.
Yes,
Our offers get accepted, et cetera.
So I was on a vacant property, a boutique broker. I was on their open house, which, by the way, that's the secret to getting more open houses, by the way. All you new agents who are whining, I can't get an open house. Well, there's a few ways to do that, okay? So when I said, hey, I know the listing agent, I've already talked to him, I've discussed with them a little bit about market value, and so we've talked about kind of where the offer, I think an offer can get accepted. Boom, the buyers are like, whoa, well, tell me about that. And hey, like, what is that? And then when I shared with them, like, kind of what I would do to negotiate against the listing agent, they were like, oh, he's got a plan, he's got a strategy, and he can help me get this property.
Yes.
Okay. So when the inventory was super low in the last couple of years, the buyers were always looking for that advantage. That's why they were calling the listing agent.
100%. 100%. So we just talked strategy on increasing, conversion of basically conversations to appointments. And you got 3 primary things. I know Mark is over here taking notes, and it's all going to be inside our blog. I love it. Are there any scripts or any tactics that you found in, tactical approaches to get to the yes, or scripts to get to the yes that's helped you?
Yeah. So I found 2 questions to be super valuable. Number 1 was, has anyone reviewed with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So has anyone reviewed with you blank, blank, blank. So if you're in the research phase.
The differences between community A, B, and C.
Exactly.
Right.
Research phase, oh, well, you're looking at Costa Valley for the first time. Cool. Well, have you looked at the greens? Have you looked at this? Has anyone taken the time to review with you the pros and cons of each one of those communities and what your purchasing power can get you and kind of what your deal breakers are? And what are they going to say? They're like, no one's done that.
Yeah.
Because the only conversations we have in real estate are bedrooms, bath, price point, square feet. Are you pre-qualified? Do you want to go see it? You want to make an offer?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Right. So no depth. So has anyone reviewed with you blank, blank, blank? Now,
go through your 3 blanks again, because you ripped through 3 and they were really good. Purchasing power, the difference between the 2 communities, and what was the third one?
And the third one was, what are your lifestyle priorities and deal breakers?
Yeah. So say the 3 again.
Yes. Well, I can't repeat. Oh man, putting me on the spot. So here we go.
Welcome to the Tom Ferry Show.
Yeah, here's the 3 again. So number 1 is, has anyone reviewed with you the different communities and the pros and cons of those communities? Right. And that's very helpful to a research phase buyer. They're like, no, like, I want that, because they don't want to be driving around town. They don't want to be spending 2 hours a night, searching online to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
If they can have one consultation with an agent to save them 4 hours and 4 weekends. Bam. And most of the good agents, you guys do that. This is amazing.
Yes.
Okay. The second thing is really purchasing power. What I noticed is, so when we bought our house in Solana Beach, now, Solana Beach is a small beach community in San Diego. There are a certain number of types of properties you can get, and our purchasing power could only get us so far. So we had to make some clear distinctions around what type of property could we get in that community and how were we going to make it work. So how was our purchasing power going to move the needle in that community? So a lot of agents, we know this, we talk about this, but it's not really inside a context that we kind of express powerfully to the consumer.
Has anyone showed you the differences in your purchasing power?
Exactly.
And love it.
Totally. Right. Then the third one is really kind of lifestyle priorities and deal breakers. Right. What do you want to experience?
And I love the deal breaker side. Like I would overemphasize that. Totally. Like, and what are your deal breakers?
Yeah. So
because they know them, but they probably haven't expressed them, written them out, and actually had somebody take the time to help them sort of codify that.
Yep, exactly. And so what I just noticed that like down the road with a buyer, and this is how I reduced the number of showings to an offer.
Yep.
Is because I started to figure out their deal breakers faster.
Yes.
Therefore, I can say, let's not go look at that one. That's got this, that. You guys aren't going to want that. You're not going to like that. You're not going to like that. And then they were on the same page with me because they knew that I knew. Yeah. Right. And so that was a little trick there. Now, one more little trick on the open house when they came in. If you actually tell the deal breaker of the house to the person that just walked into the house, they love it.
Yeah.
Right. You've been talking a lot about trust. Well, what's one way to get trust as a salesperson in a sales environment? You tell the deal breaker. And I said that one time I sold 2 properties from one open house. And I said, guys, look, this lot right here has a weird angle. And if you don't like the road noise above that, this is not going to be the right house for you. I said that to them, and they're like,
as they're walking into the open house.
I know, yes. I was sharing all the great stuff about the community, but I wanted to share that deal breaker.
Yeah.
Bam. They were like, wow, we can trust him.
Yes.
It just moved the needle, and I was like, that was cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So deal breakers. Let's jump into one more little script that I learned. Okay.
Yep.
And that is, has anyone taken the time to do a buyer consultation with you yet?
Yeah.
Has anyone taken the time to do a buyer consultation with you yet? Because we all know, and all of the agents know this, they probably have 4, 5, 6, 7 agents sending them emails with listings.
Especially in the research phase.
With Zillow and Redfin and everybody else. So their inbox is full, and everybody's talking about the same thing. Bedrooms, baths, square feet, price point, want to see it, want to see it, want to see it.
Yeah.
So if you can differentiate by saying, has anyone taken the time to do a buyer consultation with you yet?
Yep.
Bam. Now let's do one more script for the transactional phase buyer. Okay, I'm going to make you guys some money right now. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Let's just do one script that makes a lot of people a lot of money in 2020. And that is, hey, has anyone taken the time to review all of the off-market properties to see if any of those would be a good fit for you? Because the transactional buyer, the person looking for the perfect home, that's what they want.
Yeah.
And their agent for sure hasn't done it, right? So now, again, this whole
give me the script again.
Has anyone taken the time to review all of the off-market properties to see if any of those would be a good fit for you?
Yes. And off-market is true off-market, also expired, cancels,
withdrawn,
super old.
Go back 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Right? Carly did a transaction, we just called the listing agent. Hey, right? What's up with that property? Oh my gosh. Well, we rented it and the tenant's going to be out in a month. Great. Can we show it? Boom. I did that with a real niche community in San Diego. I called the listing agent. I didn't call the homeowner. I didn't have time for that at that time. I was like, I just need to get this buyer into a house. Called the listing agent. She was stoked. Boom. We did the deal. It was a $1.3 million off-market deal. Right? I was like, this is great. So then I started adding that in, by the way, into my buyer consultation.
Yes.
And now I'm introducing them into things that other agents aren't doing. And then now they're like, oh, you're the guy. Right.
Okay, so let's go right to KPI. First of all, a lot of value there, Patrick. I love it. Number 2 was increasing the number of office buyer consultations. So I got 2 thoughts here. You've given us a lot of scripts that clearly are value added, that demonstrate trust, that demonstrate authority, that demonstrate uniqueness. So they've got a lot of that. I want to do 2 things here. Any scripts that you use additionally to get the consultation, specifically at the office.
Yes.
Because I'm imagining some people say, meet at the office.
Yep.
Right? And then secondly, I want you to run us through the process of the actual consultation.
Yeah,
so
no problem.
Let's do the first one first. Any scripts or things, or how do you handle the objection or the condition of, well, why are we meeting at the office?
Yeah, I hear it all the time from my coaching clients.
Yes.
Oh, no one's ever going to meet you at the office. And I was like, well, it happens all the time with me. I'm not sure. And a lot of the great successful agents always are meeting people at the office.
Yes.
So it's just a trend. So
Yeah.
the bottom line is there's really no, I would say, sexy script for getting someone to meet me at the office.
Yeah.
It's really at this point.
How do you frame it?
If you've demonstrated a bunch of these things and you said, hey, let's get together at my office, because what I want to do is I want to go through those communities with you. I want to pull up Google Maps. I want to pull up all the properties, and I just want to walk through all of these things with you guys and do a deep dive.
Yeah.
I literally, that wasn't even a script. That's just what I want to do with them.
Yeah.
And they're always a yes.
Yeah.
I remember I sent a buyer that I'm closing on Monday. I sent him a text and I was like, hey, let's just get together in my office because I really want to just figure out what's important to you guys. It was so simple. And I was like, let's meet there and let's spend an hour and let's just go through everything that's important to you. And they were like, yes, thank you.
Yep. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
So the consultation is actually very easy. A lot of agents just have a mindset hang up, really. Okay?
Yeah. So walk us through it.
So let's make sure we're clear. Okay. There is the research phase buyer consultation. Okay. I just picked up a buyer just recently, and I went and showed them, it was my listing, they called. So I showed them the property first, right? And then from there, I started talking to them about the different communities kind of running into that equation. And they were like, oh yeah, we're not sure about, San Alejo Hills versus Forest Ranch versus Poway. And I said, you know what, instead of us just driving all over town, why don't we just get together and let's just talk about all those communities, the same script. Boom. So we got in there. I sat down with them because they're clearly research phase.
Yes.
They're like, we're going to come back in the spring. And I was like, great. So now I don't have to go show them a bunch of properties. Let's go meet at the office. Okay. So we sat down with them and I said, guys, what's important to me is to understand really, really clearly what is your guys' ideal property, right? And I want to understand your lifestyle, what are your lifestyle priorities here? What are the deal breakers? And then let's just review each one of these communities. Let's take a look at some of the things that are currently available and let's talk about those and let's figure this out. Now, research phase buyers. So I just sat down and I pulled up Google Maps and I pulled up the MLS and I just pulled up all these things.
And it's all like on a TV screen in front of them, and you're just like, so this is this and this is this and this is this.
We
and
had
what
a blast.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And they were like, literally, Tom, they walked out of the meeting and they were like, you're our agent. They just said it to me. They're like, you're our agent. Now, there was, I think Chris Smith wrote a really good book, Conversion Code.
Yes.
And in there, he said something very interesting to me. He said, dealing with online leads, the consumer, if they give you enough of their preferences, they'll give you the loyalty.
Yes.
They don't want to have to go through that again.
No.
I took them so deep on their preferences and really what's important to them that they're mine.
Yes.
Because they're like, I don't have to deal with that again with another agent.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
why go work with someone that doesn't know all these things about me? I mean,
Exactly.
it's you created it. You made it convenient and easy for them.
Exactly.
So ideal property, lifestyle, deal breakers, buying power, community by community. How long does the consultation take?
You know what? That one took at about an hour. I'll be honest. It take if you do this well and you have a great time with them and you're clicking with the customer.
Yeah.
You're going to take an hour.
Yes.
And it's perfectly okay. They are happy.
Yes.
Because you're really just helping them to come clear about what's important to them.
That's what I want to ask you.
And you are saving them a truck ton of time.
How do you know when it worked and how do you know when it didn't?
That's a great question. I'll be honest, and this is kind of where the KPI setup is, because what I noticed is, and I told you this the other day, it was so funny. I was like, look, every time I do a buyer consultation in the office, I have closed those buyers.
Yes.
Every time I am bedrooms, baths, square feet, listing alerts, text message, want to see it, I literally don't. I have horrible conversion over
You're
there.
competing against Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, and 5 other agents.
Yeah.
They can all do that much easier and much more convenient.
That is actually a really good point, because there's no way we can keep up with someone there.
Yeah.
So I figured out that we need to do a consultation in that research phase to gain that loyalty and ultimately kind of position ourselves as the trusted advisor, as you've been saying.
Yeah.
And that will secure us.
Yes.
The biggest, if we talk to, 100 agents and say, what's the problem with buyers? What are they all going to say?
Buyers are liars. Buyers aren't loyal. It's horrible that everybody keeps reiterating the same thing because it's not always true. It's always us. At least that's my opinion. It's for me, I always say there's no bad audience. It means I didn't perform well, do my research. I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
So just on
transactional side.
Yeah. So
what's the difference between the because I'm clear certainly on the person that's in the research phase.
Let's talk about transactional.
Yeah.
So some of the big issues in the low inventory market was, we were getting 4, 5, 6 offers on a property.
Yep.
So I needed to debrief them on, hey, we need to understand list price versus sold price.
Yes.
And so a lot of my Bay Area clients, like this is huge. You have to educate the buyer, because a lot of those, like my Bay Area clients, because they didn't have a conversation with them about list price versus sold price, they're like, oh, Patrick, this is the 10th offer I've written with the buyer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at what point are you going to sit down and have a conversation with them about list price versus sold price in that market?
Yes.
Right? And educate them.
There are no deals.
Right. Exactly.
Right? There are no deals. I mean, it's...
Help me get a really good deal. Oh, sure. There's 2 homes for sale in 100 buyers.
Yes.
Okay.
I like Maxine Gillen's live. There are no deals. Or she says, and then she laughs and says, the truth is, any house you buy today in 20 years will be the deal of the century.
Ooh, I'm stealing that.
Right? I mean, big shout out to Maxine Gillen's 82 years old and, been doing this forever. She's like, look, anything you buy today is going to be a deal in 5 or 6 years. Matter of fact, you should buy 2. Right?
Perspective.
So I love it that it's very much around the list price to sale price conversation.
Let's understand the market. Let's understand list price to sold price so that you understand. And then let's discuss.
But this is also where deal breaker buying power and all that stuff comes back into play because, hey, if you're not willing to be competitive with your offer, then what are the deal breakers or what, should we be, edging down in our price range or in our expectations?
Exactly.
Or going outside of the market, whatever it may be.
And so that the next thing, of course, is with the transactional buyers, I want to review any of that research of the off-market properties.
Yes.
And I could show them right there. I can go in the MLS and I can be like, look, this you can see this is a withdrawn, this was a canceled, this was an expired. Let's take a look at some of these things. And now again, I'm showing them stuff that no one else is showing them, so they love me. Right. Now, also the yikes buyer. Okay. So
the world famous Yikes campaign.
The Yikes campaign.
Yes.
So, and hey, by the way, high five to you. Carly just did another transaction. It was
Carly's his wife, by the way.
Yeah, Carly, my beautiful wife. She just, we just closed on a $1.9 million buyer.
Yeah.
And it's a community of 80 homes. They love that community. She created the flyer. They went out, door knocked. 4 people called her. 4
out of 80.
Yes.
That's an insane response.
It was incredible.
What was the gist of the Yikes? For the people that don't know what the Yikes letter is, unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, it was a great photo of the buyers.
Yes.
Right? And a very simple message. These guys, I am Carly, I'm a real estate agent, and these are my buyers, and they love this community. We've clearly identified that this is the one. There's nothing for sale currently. Would you please give us a call? We would love to talk to you about your home.
Yes.
Boom. I mean, it's so simple, so easy.
Yeah.
And
it's the world famous, like for my veterans, it's the world famous magic buyer letter. Yeah. We just started calling it Yikes because it was like, yikes, there's no homes on the market and my buyer's desperate to live in your community. So love it. Congrats to Carly and you.
Yeah. And I just did it yesterday.
So this is on the transactional side. So part of your pitch is I'm going to go find you the property that isn't on the market or was never on the market.
Yep, exactly. And then the other thing too is let's talk about what an offer needs to look like today and how do we position you as the buyer so that you're attractive to the listing agent.
So now we're going into number 3, which is how do we reduce the number of showings, right, to offers written, right, which we've covered a little of that, and then of course how do we get more offers accepted. So a little combination of the two.
100%. Because that's what the transactional buyer is looking for. They're looking for that advantage. You give them the advantage, you show them what to do, they love you, they're loyal, they're yours.
Any other before we move to KPI 3, any other tactics for the research phase consultation versus the transactional phase consultation? Any subtle language or?
Let's look at a couple of the basics, which is our job is to get them to be set up into our world of our communication. So I need to show them. So like I'll show them, hey, here's my CRM and I'm going to set up your saved search right here. Let's take a look. Do you want me to do this or that, this or that? And now when you get
That's actually beautiful.
Yeah. Then when you guys get this email, this is a really important thing. I say, so here's the game. Okay. I want to be able to do the research on that perfect property and we need to be like the first ones on it. Okay. So if you see that listing before me, text me right away. Okay. Then I will then get right into action on trying to go talk to the listing agent, do my research so that by the time the weekend shows up, we're way ahead of everybody else. Yep. See, because if you go to the open house and you never communicated with me, and then you're now calling me on Sunday night or Monday morning, I'm already at a disadvantage because now the listing agent's probably already talking to a few of their buyers, and then now I might lose your perfect home. So you and I need to be on the same page. I'm going to set you up on this system, and then you and I are going to be really on top of. If you see it first, text me. If I see it first, I'll call you. We are a team.
Oh, that's really good.
So
love it.
It's really important to set up that team, and then, hey, here's the action plan, right? You know, we've been in coaching and consulting for our entire lives. So it's like, hey, coaching clients, by the way,
action plan. 1, 2, 3.
Here's what we need to do this week, right? Here's your homework assignment.
Yeah.
Give them some homework assignments and say, hey, here's what you're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Very simple stuff. But it's just the things that work, right?
It's interesting. I just met with a financial planner yesterday, a tax accountant yesterday, and they literally did, they gave us all this information that was super valuable for us, stuff that I'm interested in. You know, I'm always trying to figure out, I want to be ahead of the curve on that stuff, right? And they said, okay, so here's your homework assignment. I'm going to send you 3 articles that I want you to read, and I want you to tell me which of the 3 best represents the future for you and Kathy.
Nice.
So then we know the path we can take you down, and we're not going to waste our time or your time on anything else. And I was like, I'm so stealing that.
Yeah, that was a great line.
I mean, but it's no different from saying to the, to the research phase buyer, hey, you seem to be unclear on the things that are the non-negotiables or the things that are the deal breakers.
Right.
Why don't you guys just go back and think about answer this question, what can we not live without and what can we not stand?
Yep.
And if you guys can just answer that, then I can narrow the focus and really serve you and only show things that make sense for you.
Yeah.
Those kind of follow-up assignments, right?
And I think it's just to stress one point. I think when I talk to a lot of my coaching clients, they really underestimate, and I've heard it a bunch of times from a lot of leaders, underestimate the value of us saving the consumer time.
Yes.
People are out there searching hours at night looking for this property, and a lot of the agents they're like, oh, it's okay. They should just be looking at a lot of properties, and then when they're ready, call me. When you're ready, it's like, what?
Yeah.
In 30 minutes, you could save them hours and hours of stress at night and get them into a contract way faster on a better home, right? So it's much. I mean, everything gets better when we meet with them face to face. Okay?
Always. So let's go to the third one. How do we reduce the number of showings to offer written? And it almost feels redundant now because we've kind of covered a lot of this. Because if you go through all of their consideration sets,
I'll add one thing to that, which is. Hey, I'm Patrick Ferry, and I got all these cool strategies of how to, manipulate the situation so I can get what I want. So I started reading a lot of Chris Voss's books.
Yes.
And I was like, I am going to negotiate. This would be awesome. Whoa. Right? So it was so funny. But what happened is I started aggressively negotiating on behalf of my buyers, and that's not necessarily what they wanted.
Yeah.
So I realized to ask them, hey,
you just wanted to use all the tactics you just learned.
I was so excited.
Okay. I love
so
the
it's
honesty
just
about that.
ask them, hey, what are your expectations of me in negotiation?
Beautiful question.
And
what did they share with you when you asked that?
You know what's interesting is a lot of them are really, they don't know how to address that, right? So, but it does open up the conversation and they start to kind of go, okay, yeah, we should talk a little bit about this tactic and strategy. Because in a transactional phase consultation, I actually cover, hey, here's what we need to do in your offer to present you. And that's where we talk about.
Let's talk about concessions.
Proof and
Let's talk
funds,
about,
yes.
right.
And then let's talk concessions because it's not always about price. There's terms that we can use and manipulate.
Timing.
Here.
You need to move in right away? Can they keep the property a little bit longer?
Yep.
Right.
And so anyways, it's a lot of fun when we really get into the details of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we start to actually leverage it. So I just noticed that now I actually ask better questions when I'm in that making the offer.
Yes.
So I just had a buyer who, they were really aggressive in their negotiation. I literally teed them up on a perfect deal. I had a verbal acceptance, $9,000 less than what it actually closed for. And afterwards, they were
$9,000 less than it closed for, as in the deal fell apart, and then
that my clients were too upset with the response from the seller. Hello, right? And when the seller came, or the listing agent came back to me and said, hey, we'd be willing to accept, I went back to my buyers and they were like, no. And then 2 months later, it went under contract and it was like, oh, we had $9,000 less than the acceptance, right? But it was a lesson that when I looked at how my buyer was trying to be super aggressive and I wasn't leading the show there with a negotiation, but the other day, they said, hey, Patrick, by the way, you just tell us what we should offer on this next one.
Yeah.
And that was perfect. So, on the KPI of less offers, more acceptance, I only had to write one offer with them that didn't work out. This next one, I'll get an acceptance because now they're like more appreciative of me because I'm having that conversation with them. What are your expectations of me in negotiation? Yeah. So that stuff's very powerful, works really well. And then if you activate any of the Chris Voss cool stuff, it's really fun.
By the way, if you haven't gone back through and listened to the entire Chris Voss interview that we
your
did,
interview with him was awesome.
And then his talk at Summit was just unbelievable. I would literally just dig back through all of that, get his book, get the audio, do the free download. It's bananas. Okay, let's go to the fourth one, which is, and again, we're jumping ahead into a lot of this, but the fourth KPI that you're tracking is increasing accepted offers.
Yep, exactly.
Right? Writing less offers, getting more yeses. Any additional strategy, tactic that you want to share? Because again, it's all kind of blending together here.
Yep, it is.
Not making that wrong. Just, it's been beautiful. You're sharing a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, so I think the final piece to that puzzle is really helping the buyer to understand that your job is to sell them to the listing agent and the seller.
Bingo.
So
how do you set that up?
Well, I just, and I think all the top agents can relate to this.
Yes.
We get an offer from an agent, just an email with nothing on it.
Yeah. You don't know
no call,
no cover letter,
no text message, no nothing. Okay. And when it was really bad and there was multiple offers, top listing agents would be looking for, and I explained this to the buyer. I say, look, what happens in the California contract is the sellers are really on the hook. If they accept your offer, they're really kind of stuck with you. Now you could back out at any time. So what if we're in competition, I need to position kind of a buyer profile. I want a letter from you. Of course I want your proof of funds. Of course I want, not a pre-qual letter. I want a pre-approval letter because
this is the competition package.
Yes.
Right?
I love that competition package.
Yes.
Because now I got to sell you to that listing agent. If we are in competition, and I tell them, I said, look, as a top listing agent, sometimes my seller would be willing to accept a little less if we can have a better relationship with the buyer, or we have more evidence that says they are actually more stable, more committed.
Less concessions, most likely to close.
Yes.
Do you ever bring up stats like the number of transactions that go together that fall apart?
So
do you use that at all in your consultations?
I don't, but man, it's I know at our office they covered it, and the numbers are horrible.
Give us an example.
I think I don't know what the numbers were, but I mean, I think everyone should be looking at what those stats are right now because
that's a good in the office discussion.
It is.
Of
That's
getting,
a killer office meeting.
Not emotion, quantitative. Like on average, how many offers that came together that fell apart? Because I've seen that stat, and I don't want to misquote it because the National Association of Realtors have done it. I've seen a Florida Association of Realtors stat. I think CAR did a stat on this as well. It's an important discussion to have.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Yeah. And then I think that kind of wraps up a lot of this conversation. Whereas if we let the consumer think that this is easy, that's not good for us.
No.
And the reality is, if you look at the numbers, it's bad, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you just met a random agent off the street and they have a low level of skill set and they're not doing thorough consultations and gaining that loyalty, that trust, and they're not educating, as Steve Harney and you have always been talking about, become that, the educator. If you're not doing that, and then there's failure after failure on the buyer's part, that's not good. They don't know how much failure is in existence right now with the offer to close.
Yes.
Big problem.
Yeah.
Right. So education, and then now if we wrap all of this up.
Let's wrap it up. We're talking about all these.
How many more referrals will we get?
Yes.
Because we spent more time gaining that trusted advisor position with our buyers.
Yes.
Off the charts.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to do one last thing too, and that is the biggest problem that I see, and I am guilty, is I've done too much education on the go. After showing, hey, I just want to tell you about via text message. Hey, we should know this.
Dropping pearls of wisdom that fall flat. Yep. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Does everybody get that? You have this killer thing, but it falls flat in a text, in a quick email, in a fast-paced environment. It's versus
a in-office formal meeting, formal consultation.
Yes.
One of my top coaching clients, and the longest one I've had, right? And he kills it with buyers. And I was confronting him. I said, look, Mike, I said, when are you teaching people all the cool stuff that you know? He's very successful with buyers. He's like, well, I just do it at the house. And I'm like, man, I wonder how many more referrals, because his referral count from his past clients, very low.
Interesting. So he gets them the deal, but there's not that emotional, value-driven connection. Interesting.
He's a stud at getting them the property, and they know it, right? When they're with him, they're like, wow, he's really good.
Yes.
But his referrals from his past clients is so weak. And I'm kind of like, hey, I think it's because you're not setting that formal meeting. At least one. Come on, Mike.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on, Mike.
All right. Okay, so wrapping it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Coach, friend, brother, advice. What are the 3-4 things you want everybody in our community, everyone that's taking the time to watch this, what are the 3-4 things you want them to do?
Yeah, so I think first is listen to this a couple times.
Yeah.
Take some notes on a few of the scripts.
Yeah.
Start to figure out. So that's one. And then number 2 is, okay, on your next open house is do a little bit more homework before the open house.
Yeah.
And
not a little bit, do a lot.
Yeah. And actually start to think through, okay, what's up with this community? What's the pros and cons of this community? What's the unique factor of this community? Can I share, kind of some of what your purchasing power gets in this community? Different floor plans, kind of everybody struggling with the early 2000, oak cabinets, white, tile, everyone's struggling with that because the buyers are looking at it like, that's too expensive. But you got the killer community. You're in the bitchin' school district. But the consumer now has to take that into consideration.
Yep.
So start to think through on your next open house, what can you share with them that's resourceful, that makes you the hyper-local expert, that there's a little advantage working with you. And I promise you, if you spend an hour in some research and prep, you're going to crush it.
Yeah, and the flaws in the property.
Yes.
Right, I love that one too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so number 1 is re-listen. Number 2 is pre-open house, go deep dive prep, really become the local knowledgeable expert, especially if you're not. What's number 3?
Number 3, I would say is, make sure that you really take a look at the Tom Ferry buyer consultation script. It's really good.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are kind of breezing over that because they want to get the listing.
Yes.
Right? And they're all like, well, teach me how to get another listing. And they're not spending enough time getting really good with the fundamental script. And then the next part to that is make sure you have a cool buyer consultation environment set up.
Yes.
Right. So like I've got the killer office, the conference rooms with the big screens. So kind of get your consultation flow environment set up so that when
the experience.
Yes.
The experience.
Exactly. Yeah. So that would be, I think, the major point. Right.
Cool.
Get that script down. Right. Then go get your consultation environment set up and we'll be rocking and rolling.
Outstanding, man.
Make a bunch of money.
Patrick, obviously, guys, you're watching this, and I'm sure, I probably should have led with this, just of how proud I am of you.
Thank you.
As I made this commitment to tell my wife, I'm not going to call you my little brother anymore, since he's taller than I am, but, by a few years.
It's all good.
But Patrick, I'm super proud of you.
Thank you, man.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing. If somebody wants to reach out to you, best email or best way to reach you in San Diego?
Yeah, I would, obviously, find me on Facebook and find me on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm Patrick Todd Ferry.
Yes.
I didn't know there was a bunch of Patrick Ferrys out there, but
yes.
So this is Patrick Todd Ferry. And then, the best email is very simple. Would be patricktoddferry@gmail.com. That's kind of the universal, easy one for everyone to get a hold of me. And come down to San Diego. We're in Solana Beach, so if you're gonna come to the Belly Up and come see a show or come hang out with me. That'd be fun, right? Let's go. Let's have a great time.
And warning, you may have like 6,000 people going, where's the Belly Up? Let's go.
Yeah. So, and thank you, Tom, because, before I jumped in with you, I was limited with the number of strategies that I could play with.
Yes.
Now I get to play with all of them and it's so much more fun. And mastering this buyer part has been a blast because it's going to increase, the client acquisition. It's a lot cheaper, and the lifetime value of that buyer is significant.
Who's going to sell later? Who's going to refer you more?
Yeah.
Et cetera. It's, cause and effect, baby.
It's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Love you, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, always, your strategy matters, and now more than ever, the superpower of a consultative approach with your buyers is what rules the day. See you soon.
Nice.